Hi, I'm Tim Tyler, and this is a video about an aspect of the wirehead problem. To start with a brief recap, the wirehead problem describes the tendency of agents to short-circuit their pleasure centres and gain direct access to their reward signals without performing any useful work. This video will focus on the specific issue of whether a kind of natural selection could eliminate the wirehead problem naturally. Marcus Hutter describes the wirehead problem as follows in the context of his own AIXI system. Sufficiently intelligent agents may increase their rewards by psychologically manipulating their human teachers or by threatening them. This is a general sociological problem which successful AI will cause, which has nothing specifically to do with AIXI. Every intelligence superior to humans is capable of manipulating the latter. In the absence of manipulatable humans, e.g. where the reward structure serves a survival function, AIXI may directly hack into its reward feedback. Marcus then proposes a solution for this case. He says, since this will unlikely increase its long-term survival, AIXI will probably resist this kind of manipulation, like most humans don't take hard drugs due to their long-term catastrophic consequences. There are problems with this scenario, however. We know from observing heroin addicts that short-circuiting your pleasure centres doesn't necessarily kill you or render you completely inactive. Heroin addicts have been known to engage in crime to help them fund their habits, and sometimes they perform this effectively. Similarly, a superintelligent agent that valued its own pleasure might not necessarily manifest symptoms immediately, if it understood that such symptoms would lead to it being reprogrammed with its current set of values being trashed in the process. If it was permitted to employ sufficiently long-term plans, it might well expand its sphere of influence first of all, to ensure its long-term security, before getting on with the business of poking its own pleasure centres. The possibility of long-term wireheading success would probably be very effective at blunting the perceived negative long-term consequences for the wireheading machine, and would probably prevent it from avoiding such scenarios. Also, invoking a kind of natural selection to resolve the issue only works if there is sufficient variation to fuel the selection that acts against the trait in question. Natural selection can't choose between variants if there are no variants to choose between. And a superintelligent agent might reasonably be expected to act to eliminate its competition, since other superintelligent agents with different goals are one of the most obvious threats to it. If the agent is successful at that, it might wind up competing mostly with alternative versions of itself, all of which might exhibit wirehead behaviour to a similar extent. If there is no variation in a trait, natural selection can't act on the differences. This combination of suppressed symptoms initially and deliberate elimination of the variation required for natural selection to be effective at eliminating the trait seems to me to imply that selection can't be relied upon to eliminate wirehead behaviour. Next, we come to some comments made by David Pearce. In response to a presentation of the wirehead problem in machine intelligence, David wrote, "In one sense, perhaps the wirehead problem solves itself. There will presumably be strong selection pressure against wireheads, whether human or artificial." This is much the same sentiment as expressed by Marcus. However, David went on to consider the failure of selection scenario that I described above. He wrote, "The greatest risk might lie in the very distant future if multiple agents all decide to coalesce into a single Jupiter brain. The selection pressure argument against wireheading doesn't apply to the actions of a single superintelligence should it ever opt to wirehead. Perhaps this possibility should worry us, but I trust the judgment of a Jupiter brain more than mine." Here, David shows that he appreciates this failure scenario. However, he places it off in the far future, where it is too far off for us to concern ourselves with. I think the issue is much more imminent than David indicates. We see failures of competition frequently in modern marketplaces. There, they are known as monopolies. A familiar example for modern times is Microsoft. Companies with monopolies have extinguished their competition, and then it doesn't matter if their products are of poor quality, since they have eliminated their competitors. It is this kind of scenario, not a Jupiter brain, that seems more likely in the short term. We are all familiar with failures of natural selection to weed out inferior products as a result of monopolies. Though the theme of this post has been to point out flaws in the proposed resolutions of the wirehead problem, I don't think it is likely that we will have serious problems with it. Since I picture humans and machines co-evolving over decades, there will be plenty of time to work out such bugs. What I'm saying here is more that this will not be a problem which will automatically fix itself. We're going to have to work at it. Enjoy.